Hey there, I'm Scott, and I'm here with Nathan Koets out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. How you doing today, Nathan?
I'm doing great. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing fantastic. So tell us a little bit about you. I know all about you, but for those who don't, just give us a brief overview about you.
Wow. Well, about myself, I've been in the cleaning business since I was really a little kid. I used to help my dad carry pails of water for his portable Steamex, and fast forward a few years, and still a family business operating truck mounts, primarily focusing on in-home carpet cleaning. And in about 94, we shifted our focus into Oriental rug cleaning. And now we're doing that almost exclusively. And, I was really fortunate to kind of jump into the Oriental rug education at a time when not many other people were doing that, which on the downside, it was kind of expensive to pursue that education, but it gave me a little head start. And now it's sort of a trendy, popular thing, and I'm a little bit ahead of the curve, so I'm pretty lucky. But I've had some great instructors, and I've learned a lot from them, and I'm still continuing to learn pretty much every day.
Yeah, cool. I'm really excited about this interview because, you're basically you got me into the business, into the rug cleaning business, and I look at you as my mentor, and I go, man, here it is. What, 15 years later, and I think back to all those times when I called you out of the gate going, help, what do I do now? And yeah, you were there every single time. So, man, thanks, Nate. You bailed
Oh,
me out and made us who we are. So I'll tell you that that's a lot of compliment on you and your family.
well, I
And
think everybody, goes through that phase. I have my mentors that I still call and ask for help, and it's nice that you and I now are both in a position where we can give back and help the next generation and the people that are up and coming in this business. And it's been very rewarding for me to watch some of those people now offering their help to others. So it's sort of a ripple effect that's really it's nice to be a part of.
it is, it sure is. Now, what is it? What's your company name? I know for a while that you were Advanced Restorations, but what are you? I mean, have you gone through a transformation with your
Yes,
company name? And
my older brother Joel and I bought the business about 2, 3 years ago, and we decided to drop the fire and flood restoration portion of the business, or pretty much drop it. The in-home carpet cleaning, we still once in a while we'll get calls from longtime customers, but we sub that work out to a local master cleaner here in Grand Rapids, Grant Dubridge, who
yep,
he does a great job for our customers, and it allows us to continue to serve them and give them good service. But our focus remains on the Oriental rugs. Our company name reflects that now. It's Clean Oriental Rug LLC, and that coincides with our web address, which is cleanorientalrug.com.
oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, and when we were advanced restorations, we used to get people, they would poke their head in the door and ask if we could come out and look at their 57 Chevy they wanted restored, or
Yeah.
we'd get antique furniture that people would want restored. And we just thought, we need a better name, something that really stresses our USP and our focus. So, you know, Clean Oriental Rug says it all. It's what we do. It's all we do, and now our customers know that.
Cool. Yeah, that's and you guys have been there for like when I met you and you said you started in '94.
Yeah,
I started in
primarily.
I started the business the same year, the exact same year, but we didn't know each other for a couple of years after that. I think '96 or '7. I
Yeah,
heard about you and I was like, I was trying to figure out who we were in our business and so yeah, I contacted you and found out you're in Grand Rapids and that's on the other side of the state. And I was like,
yeah,
man, that's pretty cool having this guy that I can pick up the phone. We didn't have Skype and internet and all that good stuff back then, but I was like, man, this is really cool having this expert that is there in Grand Rapids and you service like you don't just service people in Grand Rapids though. You you get stuff from everywhere, don't you?
yeah. as you know, as our focus on textiles has just kind of stayed there, and we've pursued studies. We consider ourselves students. We're always learning, but our reputation is starting to grow. We're doing pieces for dealers and collectors in London, England, in Canada, South America, and we just did a piece for the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So
That's crazy.
it's it's you know, the more that we've focused in on what we do, it seems like the more our reputation has grown and reflects that. And you and I also, we should both mention that, we're very fortunate that we have fathers who started our
Exactly.
businesses, who are always going to be our mentors. They're always, um, you know, they are like our rock, our foundation for both our companies. And I don't know where we'd be without our dads.
Definitely. Yeah, family's everything, and yeah, we seem to have kind of figured it out. Your company and ours. It's a lot of family businesses out there. Unfortunately, are just not. They're not doing well, and it always seems to start with the family problems, and it carries over. And I was joking with my dad when he was up. He goes, "Yeah, remember all those times when we were sitting around the table, and me and mom were talking." I was like, "You mean yelling?" Because there were times that I was wondering if I was in the right business with those two fighting each other, and they were. I mean, it wasn't bad fights. It was just snippy stuff. But seeing that, and then you talk to guys in the industry, oh, I can never talk to my family again because of this bad deal they put me in. And yeah, we are fortunate, aren't we?
Yep, yep. Our families are very close, and they've remained close. Business, as important as it is a distant second to the importance of family.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And so, tell me more about your these rugs that you're getting from. Now, do these guys drive these rugs to you, like the one you did from the Saudi Arabian uh,
Well, well,
dignitary? How did that work?
that was again, it was sort of interesting. Our reputation helped us there, but the artist who made this piece, I call it a rug, but really what it is a wall hanging. It's a piece of
Hmm.
art. It's a tufted rug that's 6 to 8 inches thick, very dense, and it's carved almost like a sand sculpture.
Huh.
And if you think of a Japanese sand garden and the way they're meticulously groomed and formed, this piece kind of reminds me of that. It's all an ivory off-white color,
Hmm.
but to me it looks like sculpted sand. And the artist made this piece about, well, in 1985, I think, was when he made it. And then he sold it to the U.S. Embassy, the State Department, and recently it got water damaged.
Oh, okay.
It was hanging in a kind of an open courtyard with skylighting up above, and Saudi Arabia got what they call 100-year rain,
Hmm.
which is a rain so intense that it only happens every 100 years or so, and it flooded the roof and very quickly made its way past the seals, the rubber seals or gaskets that surrounded the skylights, and water flowed, that had been pooling on this roof, picking up contaminants. It then flowed through the skylight down the wall and then flowed right over this piece, which was
Oh,
hanging on the wall.
wow.
And, you know, it's a piece that, for the most part, their staff had ignored it. They really didn't know how to take care of it. They would once in a while get on a ladder and vacuum it with like a brush and cuff method,
Hmm.
but that's all the attention that it ever received. And when I'll call him a housekeeper or a janitorial person, saw the water flowing over this piece, he panicked and he just started scrubbing it with a brush and um, extracting it with a wet dry shop vac. And he
Hmm.
did a lot of pile distortion, um,
Wow.
and fraying of the wool yarns, untwisting the yarns. And once the piece was taken down, they dried it out, um, to this day, I don't know how they dried it out. They probably just on a sunny day put it out in the sun and flipped it a few times, but
Hmm.
um, it went from the embassy to the king. Um, I don't remember the king's name there in Saudi Arabia, but it went to the royal conservators, and they discovered that it had an insect infestation. They treated it for the insect infestation and did more very aggressive vacuuming and scrubbing. And they did a lot of pile distortion damage,
Oh boy.
although they did address the bug situation. But at that point, State Department regulations require them to consult with the artist who made the piece.
Huh.
Um, if that artist is still alive, they are obligated to seek his input on how to restore and care for any artwork that is damaged while it's in the State Department's care. So the artist happened to be from Grand Rapids, Paul Vasosky. His family, their name is well known in the tufted rug industry. Um, in the 60s or 70s, they had moved their family business down to Puerto Rico, where it still is very active, very high end tufted rugs. And by high end, I mean in the $100 to $1,000 a square foot
Holy
price
mackerel.
range.
Wow.
They made rugs for the White House, a lot of corporate aircraft carpeting, but uh, Paul decided to do something different. His family eventually sold the company, which had the rights to the family name, and so he decided to just start a studio doing more art level pieces. He made these, I think, about a half dozen of these um, artworks, similar to the one that I restored, but um, he developed a technique for tufting that's very unique, that um, is very exclusive, and he works with a lot of interior designers. About 75% of his business is corporate aircraft or personal aircraft, Gulfstream jets, French Falcon jets, very, very high end tufted goods. But, um, he got the call from the State Department and they were in a panic, kind of seeking his input on what to do. And they initially asked him if he would create a new one, recreate it, and he absolutely refused to do
Hmm.
that. And they said, "Well, this we feel this piece can't be saved." The royal conservators said it can't be saved, and he said, "Well, ship it to Grand Rapids. I've got a company that I work with that does, a lot of restoration of textiles that other people say can't be done, and they're kind of my go-to guys." And so that's how we got involved.
Wow.
And the State Department flew in a conservator. They met with us. The artist had hung this piece on a custom frame in his studio, and so we went and looked at it. And over the course of 2 or 3 days, worked with that State Department conservator and developed a technique to, or techniques actually, to restore this piece, with her kind of authorizing the process, detailing it, photographing our testing, and we submitted a written proposal on what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, the chemicals we were going to use, and um, basically got approval at that point on the process. Then we had to submit a detailed bid, um, which was initially rejected, and then we sharpened our pencil a little bit and brought the numbers more in line with what they were budgeting, and we dedicated about 80 hours to restoring
Hmm.
this rug, and it turned out just beautifully.
Now, do you have pictures on your website, or are they kind of,
I
kind
have
of,
picked
kind of crazy about like, hey, don't share this with anyone? Kind
no
of embarrassing.
I have pictures, but I haven't put them on the website. I do have permission to.
Oh, cool.
I asked them if I could do a press release and um, if I could put together a submission for consideration by trade associations, and just see if I could get some interest either from my customers or potential customers or from my peers. So eventually, I think I will publish an article or do some type of promotion of this piece because it really is kind of a. I think there's a lot of interest in this story, both from
Oh,
you know
fantastic.
from rug collectors and cleaners' point of view to people who are into artwork to people who are into just all the behind the scenes intricacies of how something like this gets done because it was a very involved process and just the shipping of it back to Saudi Arabia was involved and I think it was about almost $2,000 each way to send it
Yeah.
back and forth. So
Wow.
it was very intricate, but a
I'd
lot of
say.
fun. And when you get unique pieces like that to work on, it's sort of a break from your day-to-day routine, and we really enjoyed working on it.
It kind of puts stuff into perspective too. It's like, holy cow, I've got sort of the political, geopolitical balance, a part of that here in my shop. Saudi Arabia being in the Middle East, obviously, and here we are in America, and we got this rug that's kind of like tying us together. And here's a rug it's not tied because it's a tufted, but still, it's like, to me, it just seems pretty cool that you're able to kind of pull our two cultures together through this piece that you're able to restore. That's really neat.
Yeah,
That's a
and
great
you know,
thing.
one of their goals was, and one of the processes that we had to do was in this, working with the conservator to establish the protocol and a cleaning game plan, so to speak, wasn't just for their approval. They're keeping that on file with the piece. So if something happens down the
Mm,
road similar to this, it'll save them a lot of time. They'll almost have like a recipe for
right.
how to deal with this in the future. If God forbid it ever happens again, they'll simplify the process greatly
Yeah.
by knowing what we use. They actually have the MSDS data sheets on all the products that we used, and you know, right down to the dry soil removal and the vacuuming. We made a video for them on just how to maintain it day to day. So,
Yeah. Huh.
um, all in all, it was a good thing. I think ultimately that it happened.
Yeah. Well, for you especially, it's now you got kind of a once in your career situation opportunity. So that's really sweet. I wanted to talk to you too. You said earlier in the conversation, you couldn't have gotten here without education. Um, and I know that, for our company and you guys, and especially you've been all over the world for your training. I mean, I think the farthest I've been was to Canada a couple of times for my training, which, it's Calgary's like its own world, but it's nothing like where you've been. So tell us a little bit about, where you've been and how that's worked out and how it's helped you, more importantly.
Well, sometimes I tease myself and I tell people that it takes a lot longer for things to sink in with me. And so I've taken a lot of the education that was available, especially when I was starting out. I would take the same classes over and over again. I just felt that, well, I told one of my instructors one time when he asked me, "Why are you taking this class again?" And I said, "Well, until I feel like I know the subject matter well enough to teach it, then there's still things for me to learn. And as long as I keep bringing, a blank legal pad of paper and I go home with 8 or 10 pages of notes of things that either got by me from the previous lessons or lessons, um, or just new things that I observed or you know, any good." student in textile conservation's always learning and adding to what they know, and that's also true for the people who are teaching me. As they would learn new things, they'd pass that along. And so, I took the Australian class, which is run by Phil Austrell in Berthoud, Colorado, and Ron Toney, who they're really both industry icons, way ahead of their time, especially when it comes to textiles and, in Ron's case, furniture and, um, you know, just kind of master craftsmen. And both of these guys really helped me a lot as I was coming up and trying to learn the trade. They taught me the cleaning science end of it, and how much really I didn't know, because you and I have both grown up in the cleaning business, and we knew how to clean carpet, upholstery, pretty much anything textile related. But when somebody walks through your door with a ten or $20,000 silk rug,
Yeah.
no matter how much you kind of pause a little bit,
Yeah.
and you want to take a a do no harm approach and
Definitely.
do the best cleaning that you can, but focusing more on safety and not doing the wrong thing. And so, I just thought, until I really grasped this class, or this part of this education well enough to teach it, I'm going to keep coming back and adding to what I know. And you know, it was really beneficial for me to go back, and instead of trying to absorb everything at once, I was more filling in the blanks, and I was taking note of the things that got by me, or um, things that I missed maybe the first couple times. So, you know, on the one hand, a lot of it was maybe redundant. To me, it was invaluable because I really um, got a handle on the cleaning science portion of it. Um, I also am really grateful to Phil Osirel because I felt like my weakest area, and this was kind of made apparent to me when I tried to sell my services to especially those clean or dealers, rug dealers, and people in the sales end of the business. They could tell that I didn't know um, the identification portion of rugs, and that was like a weak spot, um, a chink in my armor, so to speak. So I approached Phil and I asked him, where can I learn this stuff? I know you and your guys all seem to know identification really well. Now, how do I learn that? And he turned me on to the National Institute of Rug Cleaning and the ASCR, and that's the group that's now ARCS, the Association of Rug Care Specialists.
Mhm.
And they were really the only game in town when it came to learning rug ID. And for me, it was a whole new segment of the rug world, and it introduced me to second and third generation rug cleaners that I was able to learn so much from, not just in rug ID, but in cleaning as well. So
Mhm.
it's like every step I took down this path, uh, it really opened up more doors into expanding on what I already knew. So, you know, you never know it all, and the smartest people in this business, keep seeking that education nonstop. You never quit.
I
But,
agree.
it's
Totally.
taken me to, Phil and Ron's class a half dozen times, to the NIRC classes that Ellen Amir Khan, Aaron Grossclose, and Jeff Jones, Buzz Dohanian, those guys, I've taken their classes, probably close to a dozen times. And I've gone as far away as Turkey and the University of Marmara on NIRC trips to really focus in on vegetal dyes. We did a week-long session at the University of Marmara on just understanding and learning the different dye systems that are used, especially in the antique pieces. So, it's fascinating to me, and you know, everywhere I go, I realized how much that I didn't know, or how many other people there were that not only knew more than I did, but that I could use as a resource, and draw information from them when I needed it. So it's building contacts, building education, and always adding more and more to what you know, and learning not sometimes not so much what to do, but what not to do. So
Sure.
it's been a really fun journey.
Now before we go much further, can you scoot left just a little bit for me?
Sorry.
Yeah, it's yeah, perfect. Yeah, it was part of your head was off there a couple of times, but so you've been to I know you know a lot about Navajo rugs too. Did you spend any time out west?
Yeah, a little bit. Navajos are not my strong suit, but uh, you know, Jeff Jones has kind of taken me under his wing, and he's put together a couple trips again through the NIRC and now ARCS ARCs, um, doing these Navajo rugland tours, going to the reservation, not just visiting the trading post, but getting to know the weavers.
That's
Um,
crazy.
you know, I sat down at the Toadlena trading post in the Two Gray Hills area, and became pretty good friends with a 87-year-old weaver
Hmm.
who was sitting next to me. And you know, the weaving that's coming out of that, especially that area of the Four Corners, part of the Navajo reservation, it's at its highest level of skill ever. And the tapestry grade, which is the highest level of Navajo weaving, has really come into being in the last 50 years or so.
Hmm.
And it's not uncommon for contemporary pieces in the 4 by 6 foot size range to uh, reach 30 to 50 thousand dollars or more.
Is that right? My
Yeah,
goodness.
it's not
Wow.
just the old pieces that are valuable. It can be the newer ones as well. As a matter of fact, that 87-year-old weaver, Clara, who sat next to me, um, she had traded her most recent piece that she wove to the local Ford dealership, and she traded it for a new F-350 pickup truck,
No
one
way.
piece,
Wow.
to the owner of the dealership. And that's the value, and how much these pieces are still treasured today. And just it's cool to see a matriarchal society, or a society where women are as important or even more important than the men,
Hmm.
holding their own, and using a skill that's been passed down to them, mother to daughter, to really not just survive, but to make a good living. And there's nothing like visiting and touring the reservation. It's really, I said to Jeff a few days ago, it's like a spiritual journey when you go there. The connection that you make with the weavers. It's a lot more than just an appreciation for textiles and the people who make them. It's a connection that you really feel heart to heart.
Yeah, and even though we're all Americans, here we go again with the cultural connections through a rug.
Right.
I just think that's so cool, and that's one of the coolest things I like about rugs too. Is here's somebody who's in our continent, in our country, but we don't see them. They're on a reservation. It's almost as if they're foreign.
Yeah.
And here's this cool woven piece that binds us together. So
Yep.
I see all these analogies with rugs and culture tying us all as to one,
Yeah.
and
The
it's
the Navajo people, they are their own nation. It's
yeah,
still referred to as the Navajo Nation, but yet in World War II, just about to a man, they enlisted in the U.S. Army, and it was their language that became the most secretive code that we have.
yeah,
And you know, the Navajo language and the codes that they developed based on that were never cracked by the
Hmm.
Japanese. It was a way that we were able to communicate with right from unit to command post to the ships and planes in
Yeah.
the ocean and in the air that saved literally thousands and thousands of American lives. And we're talking about just you know a few hundred people, and yet that's the impact that they had on their adopted nation, who really in some cases hadn't treated them very fairly
Yeah.
or very kindly in the past. But
Indeed.
they really are some of the most patriotic and spiritual people that I've ever met.
How about that? Do you see any parallels between them and the tribes that you had met in the Middle East with their familial cultural?
Definitely.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, you know it's my opinion that when I traveled Turkey, I noticed similarities between some of the Turkish tribal groups and the Native Americans, especially the Navajos that I had met um, in the Southwest U.S. And uh, the Turkish language and the Navajo language share hundreds of words
Hmm.
that mean the same thing in both languages.
No way.
And
Didn't know
I
that.
think that it's possible that our American Indian culture made its way from Central Asia and Europe to the United States long before there was a recorded history. I just don't think it's a coincidence, but yeah, I see those similarities
How about
whenever I
that?
travel there.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a whole sidebar of information that we could go into there.
Oh
There's
yeah,
yeah, all these crazy archaeological things. Kennewick Man, for instance, where did he come from?
yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of outside the scope. Maybe you and I will talk about Kennewick Man and how Turkish people came over here.
Well, just
But
very briefly, we can just say that that ancient man had even more ancient weapons and arrowheads embedded in him, which
yeah,
told of an even older past and metalworking and weaponry that
yeah,
just you end up asking more questions than there's answers to.
I know
But it's that's the fascinating part of history
it
and
is.
how we're all tied together as a people.
And I think speaking of history, I'm a big history guy. I love world history, especially and archaeology. And rugs fit right into that thing. Maybe that's why we're drawn to that because we're such history buffs too. You think
Yep.
that might have something to do because I'm thinking about my circle of friends and everyone who's into rugs is also like a historical. They really like history and they get into it and read books about it. And it's not something they just said, well, I was did that in high school and college and I'm done. This is something that's proactive.
Yeah.
They're proactively looking for more answers about history. And
Y-
isn't that another part of the coincidence here?
Yeah. It's I've noticed over the years, and I'm relatively new to the rug cleaning business. If I've started getting serious about it in the early '90s. So if 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 I've been into it, for 25 years or so, and I see these connections, but it's a love of art, and it's whether it's paintings or weavings. I look at textiles as art for the floor, and
Hmm.
it comes back to me when I look at a piece. I'm thinking about the weaver who made it and what she was thinking of, and whether it was 1,000 years ago or 50 years ago. Um, things that they saw and experienced become a part of that tapestry, that weaving that they're working on. And I think that's what draws us into, especially those of us that are into history. It's sort of like a written documentation or a snapshot of that one day in the life of this person that'll carry on long after they're gone.
Yeah,
And I think
indeed.
that's part of the fascination for guys like us that can really appreciate that. It's a lot more than just a trade or something they did to put food on the table. Um, you can tell when someone puts their heart into their work, when they do extra things, intricate extra things that really they weren't getting paid to
Right.
do.
Hmm.
That's pride of workmanship. That's somebody who's making a statement either about themselves or their culture. But to me, all these little things are what I look for, and what makes textiles to me so fascinating. And really, we're pretty lucky because we get paid to do something that we absolutely love to do, and not many people get to make a living doing something that they really are passionate about. So we're fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, the first rug I remember, it's just like it happened yesterday. The first rug I saw in your shop, you invited Eric and I out there to come out and check it out, and I was like, oh, cool, we get to go see Nathan. I think it's like 96 or 7, something like that. And so we get out there, and you said, oh, I got to show you this rug, and it's nothing special, but you had piles and piles of rugs everywhere. I was like, what? I don't even know where to start. He goes, no, we'll start over here. And you unwrapped or unrolled this rug that had a tank on it, a helicopter on it, an AK-47, and I was like, I've never seen anything like. What is this? This is, and here we go again with history. Tell us
Yeah,
about this war rug.
yeah, that's you know, not only is it a political statement from a woman who has seen everything that she loves, torn apart by war, but it's maybe a way for her to literally earn the money to buy a gun or to put bullets in the gun that her husband uses to protect their family or their homeland. But it's also recorded history, a snapshot of what she's seeing day to day, whether it's horrific or beautiful. It's something that is just a day in her life, and so it's all of these things together. It's a way to put food on the table. It's a way to make a political statement from a woman in a culture where women don't get to speak out or speak their mind, especially if it goes against, um, you know, what the men are thinking. So this is a way for her to have a voice, not just in her community but to the world,
Hmm.
and scream about, hey, this is injustice. This is terrible. This is happening here. This is tearing our families apart. Um, you know, all of those things come together in this one little rug that she's weaving that, somebody from the outside looking in may just think, oh, that's just a piece to sell to tourists and
Yeah.
something for them to bring home, you know, as a tourist uh, uh, memorabilia, something they'll throw on the floor and forget. But it's so much more than that.
Well, as new as I was to rugs, I had never seen one of those before, and it really hit me over the head. Like, this rug is violent. And
Yeah,
when you think about a rug, you don't think of violence. You think of something that's soft and comfortable, and it's got a nice decor to it, and it fits your home. And here's this rug with these tanks and helicopters and guns and bullets and stuff. And what was that made from? An Afghan probably, right?
yeah,
During the Mujahideen.
yeah. If
So
it's
the Soviets were there, and they were trying to figure out a way to get them out of there. And so
Yeah,
that was her statement, like you said. That's
yeah, and it's
yeah,
kind of ironic that, at that time we were funding the rebels who today then we called them Mujahideen or freedom fighters. Today we call them Al Qaeda,
yeah,
or even the Islamic State.
yeah,
They've gone from being our friends using our weapons to our enemies using our weapons against us,
yeah.
and yet they're
Yeah,
still the same people that they always were. Politics can play a funny role in, especially U.S. politics, in trying to dictate what other people around the world do. But that's a whole nother topic. We could go on
I know.
for hours about that. But
After the
you
show,
know,
we'll have to do like history recap, political recap. Yeah. So tell me a crazy story about what happened in your time over in Turkey, for instance. Give me a crazy story. What happened?
Oh, well, one of my favorite days that I remember, the guy who put our trips together, Sammy Rabinovic, is himself just a prolific rug collector. He's one of these, what I call real high-end, stuffy rug collectors. Although he's not a stuffy guy, he's down to earth, very, very gentle, um, kind guy. He put these trips together. He actually gave a presentation at one of the NIRC um, trade association meetings, and he said, if you guys are interested, we could put a trip together for just your group, and you could travel Turkey together. And while we were there, he kind of expressed to Jeff and I and a couple of the other people who were with us that he had been looking for and trying to find this group that the locals called the people in the black tents. And they're actually just nomads, living the way that nomads have lived very primitively for thousands and thousands of years. Nowadays, most of the young kids move to the big cities. They go to the universities. Um, they may start out as, sort of quote unquote rural farmers or, agricultural workers, but that way of life, the nomadic way of life, where they're following the pasture land from one place to another and living in tents, has pretty much died out.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, Sammy had heard of a particular family that was still living this way. And for over 10 years, he had been looking for them, trying to
Hmm.
find them. He'd hear rumors here and there that they had been seen or spotted. And he said, I've been looking for these people for over a decade. So we just one day we just said to him, let's scrap our itinerary. Um, let's hire a local guide who was a friend of Sammy's that owned a rug store actually, and we all got in a couple 4x4s and we just started looking. We went up in the Taurus Mountains and to an area where we had heard that they had been seen maybe the year or 2 years before, and we just started asking people if we saw a guy pulling a donkey, leading a donkey on the side of the road. We'd stop and we'd say, "Hey, we're looking for the people in the black tents." And most of the time, through the translator, we would hear, "Are you crazy? They're gone. They don't.
Yeah.
They're not. They're no more. They don't. They don't. They're not here anymore." Um, but we kept looking, and it's getting hot. It's getting midday. We're getting tired, and we're still stopping and asking everybody we meet. And finally, we see this old man, um, and his wife is at a loom at the side of the road. They have just kind of like a fruit stand almost to service people who are driving down this dirt road.
Mm-hmm.
And we ask him, have you seen the people in the black tents? And he says, my son said he saw them a couple days ago, but my son lies a lot, and we just laughed, but we said, well, if if he's if he did see them, where did he say they were? And he said, well, if you go down, if you take this road up into the mountains, and you get to a certain point where there's no longer a road. He said, just keep going, and keep going for another couple kilometers. And he said it'll turn into a goat path, and then pretty soon you won't be able to drive anymore. He said, then get out on foot and just start walking and looking for them. And that's exactly what we did. And so we're walking, and pretty soon, the older people in our group and some of the women were getting tired, and we're just feeling like this is a wild goose chase. We're wasting our time, um, and we decide, um, we're going to quit. We're going to go back to the cars. And Jeff Jones and I just decided, well, we'll go over the next ridge. And, that sounds pretty easy when I say that. We're looking down into a valley. We'll climb up the other side and look over and see what we can see. But
Hmm.
really, foothills are so much bigger than you think
Oh
they
yeah.
are. And, it takes like a half hour to walk down and then another 45 minutes to an hour to walk up the other side.
Sure.
And so that's what we did. We get up to the other side and we look down and we about fainted because we see these black tents and thousands of black goats and
Wow.
sheep. And we just couldn't believe it. We,
Wow.
we had found these people and, you know, I turned around and I shouted to Sammy, our friend, that we found them. We found these people, and I'm gonna go down there and say hello. And he says, no. He shouted over to us, "Don't go down there. They'll kill you." So I'm thinking, wait a minute, what has he got us into here?
Wow.
And so we waited for them to join us, which again, it took some time for them to catch up with us. And so our guide, Sammy, some of the women, everybody were back together on this ridge looking down. And of course, these people had spotted
Oh
us.
yeah, I was gonna ask that. They probably saw you
Oh,
coming.
yeah.
Hmm.
And we're starting to see guns in their hands.
Oh
And
man.
we're getting a little bit nervous because we realized all of a sudden we're far from our vehicles
Uh-huh.
and we don't really know where we are. And here we are dealing with some people who have guns. And our guide, who owned the rug store, shouted down to the he was actually like an 18-year-old shepherd boy, and he shouted down to him in Turkish. And I said, "What did you say to him?" And he said, "I just told him who my father was and who my grandfather was." And this boy shouts back something up to him, and it turns out that his grandfather knew our guide's grandfather,
Oh wow.
and that he had mentioned to his grandson about this guy, my friend's grandfather. So they at that point they waved us down. They said, "Come on down," and so it was just kind of surreal
Wow.
walking down um, this hillside, and there's camels roaming around us, and nothing's tied up or fenced in. These
Yeah.
animals are free range, and so there's camels, and we walk through these sheep, and um, we meet up with this shepherd boy, and it's customary in Turkey to give gifts to people,
Right.
especially when they're showing you hospitality. And so I gave the shepherd boy, who was basically, it was his job to watch over primarily the camels, but also the sheep, and to keep them from going astray, and also to keep wild animals from
Hmm.
taking them. And I gave him this little monocular, like a little Bushnell 10 power monocular. And to give you an idea of their culture, how isolated they were, he had never seen one before.
Really.
He didn't know what it was. And so I held it up to my eye, and then I had him hold it up to his eye. And he just went like, he kind of freaked out when he looked through it. And then he was showing his brothers, but he wouldn't let them hold it. He
Uh-huh.
he
Yeah.
would just hold it for them and let them look, but he wouldn't let it out of his hands.
Oh wow.
And his older brother came up, and I gave him a folding lockback knife that I
Okay.
had brought over primarily for security.
Yeah.
But I think he had never seen a folding knife
Okay.
because he didn't know how it operated. So I showed him, and he kept opening it and closing it and opening it and closing it. and I could tell that that meant a lot to him. And then these two took us into kind of the heart of the the encampment. And as it turned out, most of the men um, they were off selling dairy products, cheese, goat cheese, and milk, and some hides. So they were on their way to the nearest town or village or market, wherever they did their trading. Um, but uh, so we kind of were dealing with kind of the grandma, the matriarch of the family, and I gave her. We had just stopped at a kind of an outdoor market, and I had a kilo of dried white grapes and a kilo of pistachios in my pack, and I gave those to her. And actually, I told the boy to give them to. I said, "These are for your mother, for your grandmother," and he gave them to her. And that really, I could see at that point that they accepted us, that we were welcome. At that point, we had gone from being an intrusion to a guest,
How about
and
that?
they gave us tea. They invited us to stay for lunch. They fed us pita bread, uh, liquid yogurt. It was like loaded with garlic.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, it was.
That's foreign to us
Garlic and
Americans.
yogurt are not two things that I
Yeah.
generally associate together, but I drank it to be polite, and you know, I'm sitting in these tents that, basically are probably unchanged from the way they've been made for thousands of years. And I'm looking at these textiles and pillows and, flat weaves, and uh, it just seemed kind of surreal, to be sipping tea with this family that was living such a primitive lifestyle
Wow.
that my friend had been searching for over a decade. And
And you found them. That
yeah,
is.
well, together we all found them. But I think I shot probably a dozen rolls of film. This was before digital photography was affordable, really,
Yeah.
and quality enough to use. But yeah, I'll have to show you those photos
Yeah.
sometime. It's amazing.
Boy, that would be a great like slideshow to do as a
Yeah,
presentation. Have you done that for the ARCS or
I
any
have
groups?
not.
Man,
It's
they'd eat it out. I mean,
they
that's what we
would.
do.
It's almost like it's weird. It's sort of like it's almost like that's something that those of us who were there that we shared, and I should share it with other people, but it's almost like our secret. It was a just so special for us. It was almost partly coincidental, but yet it seemed so meant to be when it happened.
Yeah.
But it
You could
it
have
was
stayed
just
back at camp. You could have stayed in the car and walked back with the rest of them.
that's
You
yeah,
could
that's what
have not
that
listened to the guy who said that his son lies all the time. So,
yeah, all
yeah.
those things. I ended up. I said to Jeff, "Can you believe how surreal that was, and how many things had to come together for us to stumble across these people?" And here we were, you know, like 10 hours later, we're on the rooftop of this hotel in Istanbul, and it was like being in New York City,
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
hustling, bustling city with, all the modern conveniences. And, we went from just one extreme to the next in just a span
Unbelievable.
of a couple hours. But,
Wow.
you know,
Man,
that was just one
it's an
unusual thing that
incredible story.
happened in Turkey among dozens and dozens of things that were just each one of them is just so memorable. I
Yeah.
highly recommend if you're into textiles, I highly recommend traveling. And it really doesn't matter where because textiles are in just about every country that you go to. I know your wife's from Korea. There's weavings from that part of the world
Mhm.
and China, Indonesia, and all the way down to the Fijis and Australia, and you name it. There's a
Yeah.
weaving culture there that can be explored, and um, it's just one of the funnest things to me about studying, collecting, and caring for textiles is they have such universal appeal.
Right. Wow, that's an incredible story. I'd like to shift gears though, and as awesome as that story was, it is getting to be an hour already, and
Sorry.
it's I know, no, I could listen to it all night. It's just that I've got a couple other things I wanted to cover too. Let's shift gears, and we talked about the industry itself and how cool it is and how you and I like it. Let's talk about what's in it for the client. What if I'm somebody looking for a rug? I'm a client. I don't know anything about rugs. What should I do? Where do I start?
As far as
I want
wanting
to
to.
buy a rug. I've got a nice wood floor, and I'm sure
Okay.
you've heard this a million times. I've got a great wood floor, and I just went up to the auction house or the pottery barn or something, and I saw this beautiful rug that's going to fit right in that space, and I think it's gonna look great. Uh, I've got some questions. Is it going to last? How do I take care of it? Is that a good quality rug? There's just a lot of things that the average person would need to know about purchasing a rug. So let's start there.
Well, I do get asked that a lot. Primarily, it's people who are traveling or about to go on a trip, and they want to know, okay, I'm going to Turkey. What kind of rug should I get that's going to be a good investment? And, right from the get-go, I tell people, do not look at rugs and textiles as investments. If you want to invest money, invest in gold or the stock market or commodities, something else. But
Mm-hmm.
when you buy a textile, first and foremost, it should be something that really catches your attention. I tell people it's going to wink at you when you see the right rug. You're going to have it. It's going to be something that catches your attention, and you may not even be able to put into words what that is. But it's when you buy a rug, it shouldn't be for any other reason than you just love that rug and the way that it looks. And that way, regardless of whether you spend $100 on it or $50,000 on it, it's always going to be that rug that you love.
Mm-hmm.
The people who get disappointed are the ones that buy a $10,000 rug, and the dealer tells them that as soon as they get it home in the U.S., it's going to be worth 20,000. It's very rare, and
Yep.
every year it'll double in value. And you know,
Yeah.
these are the people who they buy out of greed, and then it just doesn't work out that way. Their rug never fulfills that promise, and they end up feeling like they got taken advantage of, and worse yet, they grow to resent that rug
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't do what it was promised to do. But if you buy a rug because you love it, because it just grabbed you, it winked at you, 10 years down the road, every day when you wake up and go down and it's underneath your kitchen table and you're sipping your morning coffee, you're going to look at that rug and go, man, I love this rug.
Yep.
I remember when I bought this, where I was, and it'll always be special.
Sure.
And that's why you should buy a rug. As far as where to buy, that varies from, even from we're both in Michigan. You're kind of lower central. I'm on the west side. Detroit's on the other side of you. We're going to see a huge difference in the types and values of rugs in our three areas. And you know, bottom line is you need to buy from somebody that you trust, that either has a good reputation, that one of your friends dealt with that said I had a good experience, or you can look online and see that he doesn't have any bad reviews. If you a policy where if you don't like a rug, you can try it out for 30 or 60 or 90 days. If you don't like it, you can bring it back and exchange it. that's the kind of person you want to buy from.
Totally agree.
But you know, if as far as taking a trip and buying a rug, I tell people by all means get a souvenir rug or a textile, but just get something that's cool. Don't try and put a ton of money into it. I mean, unless you just got a lot of disposable income. But
Yeah.
you know, most of my favorite pieces I've picked up for under $300, and I've spent one piece I bought in Jerusalem in the old city. I must have gone back to this rug dealer, I don't know, 6 or 8 times. Each time sitting down, having tea, eating baklava, talking shop, and you know, getting him to knock his price down another $50 every
Hmm.
time. Until I'm getting a rug that he initially wanted $1,400 for, and I'm walking out with it for 275 bucks. You know,
He just didn't
and
want you to come back a ninth time. That's all.
that may be it. But I
Yeah.
think
T-bill
ultimately,
went way up.
in that case, and I love the psychology of haggling, but in that case, he wanted to sell me a rug really bad, and I wanted to buy a rug really bad, but I just kept telling him that, uh, you know, I'm not a good customer for you because I'm in the trade. I get things wholesale,
Right.
and I know that you get tourists who will pay you,
Hmm.
the money you're asking for, but I get rugs wholesale. So really, you don't want to sell me a rug. I'm not a good buyer for you. And oh, that
How
made him
dare
want to
you?
sell to me so bad. He
Uh,
just he had to sell to me something, and it turned out to be more for him, more about the
yeah.
selling me a rug than making money. And that became not as important. And so we kind of met in the middle, and I got the rug that I fell in love with. At, and you should try and hide that you've fallen in love with a piece when you're
Yeah. Yeah.
negotiating. But in this case,
Yep.
I couldn't help myself. He knew I wanted it, um, so I kind of violated one of my own rules. But I ended up, we were both happy. We were both pleased. My girlfriend was on that trip with me, and she ended up buying. She spent a couple $1,000s in his shop and
Oh
bought
wow.
bought 3 rugs from him. So he ended up doing very well and making a lot of money off her, and so it was a win-win. But now every time I look at that rug, I remember going there and having tea with him, and that rug has become so much more than a textile to me
Oh
or a
yeah.
souvenir from my trip. It's about you know me making a connection with a guy on the other side of the world that I sat down and talked politics with and shared tea with, and you know ended up at one point he and I were walking the old city. We just left his shop, and um, he closed his doors, and we just started walking together like two friends. And
Hmm.
he gave me a tour of the old city,
How cool
and
is that?
we made a friendship, and it was something I'll never forget about that trip. And then I have that textile to kind of tie it all together in my mind. So
Well, it's all about the story, and you guys, you gave him a story, and he gave you a story. So once again, here's that rug weaving the two cultures together.
yeah.
It's just incredible. Okay, so getting past the rug purchase, then of course we need to worry about how do we take care of these rugs? What do we? I know we should vacuum them. We hear that they should be cleaned on occasions. On occasion, sometimes the dealer says this is bulletproof and never needs to be cleaned. I've heard that. I'm sure you've heard that billions of times too.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so, what should they do? How do they take care of this thing day to day? And also, when should they get it professionally cleaned?
Well, I think it's a good idea to have a rug cleaned regularly. Now, it can vary from rug to rug, but most importantly, it's where that rug is put into use in your home. And a rug that's at your front a primary entryway where your guests, as you come and go and wipe your feet on from the outdoors. An entryway rug is going to need cleaning maybe once a year, whereas a rug in a guest bedroom or in a formal dining room that doesn't get used very often, um, these are going to take maybe a cleaning every 5 years, and it's going to be a maintenance cleaning at that, where it's
Hmm.
not really visible soil, but it's just time. It's so I tell my customers in general, I say 3 to 5 years. Every 3 to 5 years, you should have a rug cleaned, but it's not a set rule or a set guideline. Um, you really shouldn't let a rug get so soiled that you see a traffic pattern developing on it.
I agree.
Um, it's I tell people, think in terms of like a piece of upholstered furniture that's a dry clean only piece. You don't want to let it get dirty and then do a restorative cleaning on it and expect it to come back
Hmm.
to the shape that it was and the way that it looked when it was new. You want to always keep it looking new by not letting it get that soiled to begin with. And Oriental rugs are kind of the same way. Uh, if it has cotton fringe, that's a good indicator. Is just keep your eye on the fringe, and when that starts to show a little bit of soil, um, that can be your indicator that it's time for an overall cleaning. Some people just put them on a set schedule, and every 3 years they're going to bring that rug back to me for cleaning. They've just got it on their calendar, but usually the rug will kind of tell you when it's ready for cleaning. Um, but the best interim care that a homeowner can do is vacuuming. Um, you know, if it's got fringe, you want to avoid using a beater bar, if and avoid getting that beater bar close to the fringe. Um, a good way to vacuum fringe is just with a hose cuff of a vacuum, even like a shop vac. You can just take the attachment end off and use that hose and kind of draw the fringe, suck the fringe into the hose end, and that's a good way to clean that part of the rug. And then just vacuum the sand and the debris out of the rug because that's the most damaging, um, especially sand. If you look at it under a microscope, it's like um, you know a cube of sugar almost with very sharp edges. And when those fibers get bent over that sand and that debris, over time it'll break or cut it. So getting that damaging soil out will prolong the life of your rug a lot. Having a pad underneath it also prolongs the life of the rug. Some people say it doubles the life of the rug, and I tell my customers it's sort of like the shock absorbers on your car. If you didn't have those, your car would just get jolted and rattled, and every impact would take its toll on the frame and on the components of that car. But with shock absorbers, it's like a cushion, and it protects the rest of the car. And a pad is that way. It takes the impact and just cushions that rug, and it gives it just a soft um, kind of a foundation to rest on, and it takes a lot of that abuse that the rug would take all on its own. So, you know, good vacuuming is the most important. Having a good pad underneath it's very important. Um, and then just you know having good comprehension of where your rug is. A kitchen rug is going to need more interim maintenance, just like an entryway rug. Hallway rugs we tend to see in for cleaning more frequently, just because the foot traffic is very limited in a hallway. It's always going to be right down the center of the hall and not much variation at all. So hallways, entry runners, or entry rugs, and kitchen rugs tend to be ones that we see more frequently. But the rugs in the other areas of your home, just pay attention to them, look at them. I recommend every 6 months to a year looking at all your rugs, and especially in the areas that are little used or don't see much traffic, you want to be cautious because this is our worst year ever for moth damage. So I tell my customers just fold in the sides of your rug, fold in the ends so that you're looking at the back side, maybe 4 inches on each side, and looking for little it looks like sand, and that's the eggs,
Hmm.
or little cocoons. They look like just little white pieces of paper almost, or little tubes. Or just look for damage on the rug itself, missing knotbacks, or that side overcasting that just starting to show foundation yarns underneath there. Just be vigilant for moths because this is the worst year that we've ever seen. And I don't really know why that is, but we're seeing just a ton of moth damaged rugs this year.
Hmm. We haven't seen that many over here. I think there's, off the top of my head, I can only remember two.
Wow,
Yeah.
I took in 8 Navajos last week with extensive moth damage, and
Wow.
I've probably seen, well, I had one order of 25 rugs, all with moth damage. I had one order with 18 water damage rugs, and the client was in Florida, and the restoration contractor who brought them in, we were looking at them and we realized not only were they water damaged, but they had active moth infestation
Oh my.
going on at the same time. So really, the water damage from the rugs perspective was a blessing because
Yeah. Flooded them
they
out.
and they would have been much more damaged, by the time the client got home from Florida.
Mm.
If there was no flood, she probably would have lost a lot of her rugs. So,
Wow.
I told her, always look on the bright side, and that flood ended up being a blessing for you because
Hmm.
her rug collection is mostly 1920s and 30s Art
Wow.
Deco Chinese pieces, and
Mm.
a lot of them would have been really hard to replace. So
Wow.
we've had mild winters in the past, so I don't think the previous couple of years being somewhat mild winters have come into play. So I really don't know what it is that in my area we're seeing more and more of it. Um,
It was really the last 2 years here, especially 2 years ago. We had record cold, snow, ice. Last year was a little bit less than 2 years ago, but still, it was terrible compared to, say, the past decade. So maybe since you're on the west coast there, you get the warmth, and that's helped them grow a little bit more than over here.
yeah, I don't know, but I'll tell you, it's made me a lot more vigilant, and um, especially the rugs that are coming through my door. I want to make sure that I'm having people stop, and I go outside and meet them
Yeah,
and look at their rugs very quickly before they come inside.
yeah,
Um, you
nothing
know,
worse than cross
yeah,
contaminating.
yeah, you can't always stop it, but it's been a really crazy year for moths this
Hmm.
year. But one thing that we do know is they will not. At least we've never seen it happen that where a moth goes after a clean rug,
Yeah,
even if
that's
it's in
true.
storage. If you clean your rugs before you put them in storage, you should not have any problems with moths whatsoever.
Hmm.
So it's sad when we see it. It's heartbreaking at times, but you know, it's fortunately there are things that we can do to stop them in their tracks, and then to make the wool taste bad so that they don't come back and
Hmm.
try and finish the job later.
Yeah.
So it's a two-step process, but it's one of the services that we can offer our clients to really protect their investment, or and it may not be a monetary investment. So many of the rugs that we see have sentimental value that
Oh yeah.
vastly exceeds their monetary value. So
Yeah.
saving someone's rug that their great grandmother made is a lot more rewarding than saving a $50,000 silk rug that nobody really cares about. It's the ones that have history that really mean the most to me.
I had a. That's funny you mentioned that. When we first opened up our rug store in Brighton, gosh, it was 1997, six. I mean, one of the like the first week that we were open, a lady, really nice lady, brought in these really small olefin rugs. They were tiny, 3 by 2, and they were Christmas themed. So I was looking at these, going, I know it's going to cost at least $25. Our minimum at the time was $25 a rug to clean these. She brings it in. I unroll it. I inspect it. I look at the back, and there's a tag that says $9.95 on it. That's how much she paid, or that's what the rug cost at the time.
Yeah.
And she was looking at me, and I looked up at her and I said, "Ma'am, I just wanted you to know that the cost of these, when you purchase them, and they didn't look that old, were under $10, and it's going to cost us $25 each to clean these." And she looked at me sternly, like her whole demeanor changed. It went from nice middle-aged woman to, "How dare you tell me that my rug's not worth the cost of cleaning? Can you clean it or not?"
Yeah.
That's what her demeanor changed to. And I was like, "Yes, ma'am, we can absolutely clean it. I just felt as a professional it was my job to explain to you that the cost benefit is probably not there." She goes, "This was my grandmother's and she passed away."
Hmm.
And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was a wake up call and a good lesson for me, because you're so right. Those sentimental things are extremely important to people, and it's not all about the money."
Yeah. I've found, we've all done that where we've put our foot in our mouths a little bit, and you know, you just learn to kind of shift gears a little bit and be a little more tactful with the rugs that you know are inexpensive. And really, um, I ask people, has this rug been in your family for a long time, or is there sentimental value, or um, you know, it's I always will try and find something complimentary to say about even
Mhm.
the most well, let's just say hideous rug, that
Mhm.
may have just the most weird colors, but I'll find something good to say, whether it's, wow,
Oh yeah.
this rug really has unusual colors, does it have decorative value? Does it go with your room's decor? And a lot of times that's the case. It's a case of decor and an unwillingness to change the 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 room's color scheme.
Mhm.
Um, I've got a tufted rug, a customer in Saugatuck that's had me clean the same $75 uh, tufted rug, and I charge them $150 every time I clean it. And I clean it twice a year, and I've been doing that for probably the past 10 years,
Mhm.
So, he's paid me, $3,000 over the time that I've known him to clean this $75 rug. And it's because he can't find anything like it with those same
Mhm.
color greens, and he's decorated his entire kitchen around the greens in that rug, and it ties
Mhm.
his whole room together, and um, sometimes that's the case. I just took in a wool braided rug and complimented the woman on it, and I told her, because it had some, as you know, the oval braided rugs can have gaps in them, and the
Oh yeah.
stitching can
Mhm.
degrade over time, and
Definitely.
and I told her that these can be expensive to repair, because a lot of times, what we see as far as visible damage can be the tip of the iceberg, and
Mhm.
as we work on it, we may see more breakage or areas that we missed in our initial inspection. So we tend to quote those high uh, on an hourly basis as
Mhm.
far as
You have to.
repair. And
Yeah.
I just let them know that, you know, it's a beautiful rug, and I ask if their grandmother or mother made it, and in this particular case, the woman said all the greens that you see in that piece were my grandfather's Korean War uniform.
Oh, nice.
And
Wow.
you know, price was absolutely
Yeah.
the furthest thing from her mind. She wanted to know if we could clean that piece without bleeding the reds into the other colors. so that her grandfather's war uniform rug could be preserved. And it was kind of humorous to her and to me too, because she said her grandpa really resented the fact that his wife had cut up his uniform
Oh
um,
man, that's funny.
to make this rug. And so it was like a conversation piece for them, and something that she, as the granddaughter, just treasured. That was her dad's time, fighting a war on the other side of the world, and it just meant the world to her.
How about
And
that?
every single rug that comes through our doors has some kind of story attached to it. And
Yep.
just, almost without exception, even some of the inexpensive ones,
Mhm.
they have a story. And I think the best cleaners are the ones that can coax that story out of their clients, and it really makes the cost of our services. And because you and I do things by hand, the cost of our services are a lot more than most people who advertise themselves as rug cleaners. And so for guys like us, we have to shift the conversation away from price and onto what's important to that client about the rug and why it deserves our special attention. And really, it puts price way down the list
Mhm.
of priorities. Um, but yet, when customers call and they're kind of feeling you out, especially if you have competitors, they don't really know what else to ask other than price
Mhm.
over the
Oh,
phone.
yeah,
So
definitely.
we've gotten pretty good at shifting that price point discussion. We kind of shift gears on them and ask them about their rugs and what they know about them, and if they can describe them, if they can bring them in. But usually before they ever get to our building, we've gotten them to kind of reframe that conversation and focus on what's important to them. And it may not be value of the rug. It may be Fido had an accident and mother-in-law's coming to visit next
Mhm.
week, and I don't want her to think that I'm her
Mhm.
son's living in a filthy house.
Exactly.
I want her to be proud of my house. And so there are so many reasons why our clients may use us. We just have to figure out, the right question to
Mhm.
ask them.
We have walked away, and I'm sure you have too. We have several times said that the cost of this cleaning is X, and the client's like, well, we only paid Y for it, and those two numbers didn't reconcile in their head, so they said no. Even though you try to get the story or you try to talk with them about, for some people it's just about the price, and that's fine too. It's not our cup of tea, and that's if you want to
Yeah,
try some other guy who's gonna just perhaps run a power washer over it, like we've seen several times around here.
oh yeah,
Knock yourself out, but to do it properly, it's going to cost a little bit more. So
yeah.
let's talk about that too. How would we've gotten to the point pretty much here? I'm at the end of my questions, and I wanted to find out from a consumer's viewpoint, how do they find somebody that knows what they're doing with rugs? Now, you just for the past hour or so have really showed people that your expertise is not questionable. But for most people, they're like, well, I don't have an hour and 15 minutes to hear. How would they find somebody? They're going through the internet and they run across somebody that says they do rug cleaning. How do they know? What should they ask?
Well, what we tell people is if you don't have a lot of time to talk with us and you are just um, gathering information. And sometimes, you may not be dealing with a rug owner. You might be dealing with, we call them the gatekeeper, or you know, the housekeeper, or uh, you know, my brother, or my younger brother's a personal assistant to a very wealthy client, and you know, it may be their job to call around and get more than one quote.
Hmm.
So what we try and do is educate them on how to tell a good cleaner from a bad cleaner, and what questions to ask that'll help them figure that out. You know, some of the things that we recommend they ask is, what is your cleaning process? Um, you know, if my rug has colors that bleed, how do you address that?
Mhm.
And the other thing we recommend is that they ask if they can come down and take a tour of the facility and see how you care for rugs. And we flat out tell people um, most of the time you won't get a straight answer on a method or a cleaning process. They'll just say they're the best, or
Mhm.
we have the best equipment, or the latest equipment, or the most powerful equipment. Um, if you ask about color run, they may say, well, we just test and if the colors run, we can take care of it,
Mhm.
but they won't go into detail. They won't get to an actual game plan of how they would care for that. And above all, we've found that when a customer asks if they can come down and look at the facility, it's a flat out no. Um, you know, Whereas we welcome people to come to our shop. We're proud of it. We tell them it's messy, you know, but you will see hundreds of rugs
Mhm.
when you walk through the door, and you know, you will be able to see our process from start to finish. If you have time to watch, we love to show people how we do it. We love to show off our method and our equipment and you know, if they ask to see that of our competitors, we know that they won't have that opportunity.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing that we've asked people is, to ask if it's a company that isn't like mine. We're exclusively doing area rugs, but most of the people who advertise rug cleaning are also cleaning in homes installed carpet or
Mhm.
businesses installed carpet. So, we ask people to ask the prospective rug cleaner, what method do you use for in-home cleaning, and how does that differ from your method in cleaning Oriental rugs?
Right.
And most of the time, if they ask just a very few intelligent questions, they'll get past that veil of, oh, we're the best or we're the cheapest.
Mhm.
And they'll find that they're talking to somebody who um, doesn't either understand the cleaning or doesn't care, or worse yet, they know that what they're doing is at best a surface cleaning and no different from the way that they clean wall to wall carpeting. And, for some people, maybe that's all they're interested in.
Mhm.
And that person isn't our type of client. But for most of the time, once we arm them with these questions to ask other prospective rug cleaners, they're either saying, you know what, never mind,
Mhm.
we're gonna
Yeah.
stick with you guys.
You stuck your neck out that far, boy.
Yep,
We've got to
or
trust what you say now, cause
yep,
yeah.
or they're just curious at that point and they want to come down and see.
Mhm. Sure.
And whether or not we get the job, we like to have people come down. Bring a small rug. We'll dust it out for them. Yeah, whether we get the job or not, we're proud of our equipment, and we want them to see how it's different from,
Mhm.
the wall-to-wall cleaning processes. And um, you know, it's 9 out of 10 times when they come through our door, either from our website or from conversations on the phone, they're already pre-sold, and price is not really a consideration at that point.
Yeah.
And referrals are another way of getting that customer that's pre-sold. Just one happy person telling another,
Mhm. Sure.
um, you know, whether it's a compliment. You know, I get so many people who come in and they say, I was at my friend's house and all her rugs all of a sudden looked brand new.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I asked her, where she had them cleaned, and so,
Here
she
we
sent
are.
me to you. And just doing good work sometimes can lead to referrals and, um, happy customers that, um, are more than happy to tell their friends about you if you just ask them to do that. So we do ask for referrals from every customer.
One thing I'd add to your awesome list of questions to ask is how are they going to clean the fringe if there is one? And will
Yeah,
they be putting any brighteners in it, bleaches? How are they going to treat that fringe? Because that's a big indicator on how they're going to treat the rest of the rug. If
yeah,
you can't get it, if you can't pound that nail down hard enough with a smaller hammer, get a bigger one. And
oh
so
yeah,
they'll, like, there's a urine stain and it started off small and now it's huge. Now what do we do? Because they didn't flush through dozens of gallons of decontaminant and water to get that out of there. Well, how are they going to treat the fringe? What if it's got some issues? Are they just going to throw some bleach on it, peroxide or something to make it look brighter?
yeah,
Or are they going to take the time to do it by hand and groom through gently each of those things with a rug comb, and each strand is going to be cleaned as if it's its own little rug. So
yeah.
tell me how you're going to clean the fringe, and I'll tell you how that rug cleaner is going to treat the rest of your rug.
And we find most of the time that they won't even be able to get any answer, whether
No,
it's a lie or the truth. Most people answering the phones just don't know.
right.
You they may lapse into, well, it's extremely thorough with extremely powerful equipment that's state of the art, and we know exactly what to do.
All the
But
platitudes, right?
yeah, you get beyond those glittering generalities,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just it's all fluff. And when it comes down to it, they don't have a game plan.
We do.
And it's it's fortunately it's pretty easy for the educated customer to uh, once you point these things out, they're pretty good at
Mm-hmm.
picking out the charlatans and the scam artists that are in this business, unfortunately.
We speaking of that, we had a prominent rug dealer, a local dealer. Um, they said they cleaned this lady's rugs about 5 years ago, and when we picked it up, the fringe was just beat up. You could tell it's been bleached. And
Oh,
talked to the client about it. She goes, "Well, I sent it to them. They sold me the rug. There's no way they would have messed it up." So I picked up the phone and I called the rug dealer and I said, "Do you guys clean these in your location, or do you send it out?" "Who is calling?" And I said, "Well, I'm the prospective rug cleaner." "Well, we don't talk to competition. Blah blah blah." And I said, "Well, do you? One question, one more time. Do you or do you not clean it at your location?" The lady was convinced that they did, and I was convinced they didn't. And come to find out, he just hung up on me. He's like, "Click."
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just hear the dial tone, and I'm like, that tells me they don't clean it there. That they're sending it out to probably some high volume rug cleaner or perhaps even a carpet cleaner, and
Yep.
they're not doing the proper job because obviously this fringe is beat up and this rug wasn't that old. It shouldn't have looked like that. It was in a low traffic area and the fringe is bleach white and beat to strings. Just, yeah.
Yep. And if they were doing a good job or doing it themselves, competitor or not, they should have been proud of their work, you
I would have
know?
told them. I would have told them exactly how we did it, and that we absolutely would not use bleach, peroxide, or any other brighteners on there,
Yep.
especially on a brand new rug that didn't need to be restored. They just probably didn't do a good enough job on the fringe and needed it to look white to get it out the door.
Yep.
So,
It's, you know, good cleaners, even the best cleaners, every once in a while will come across a stain that requires that more extreme measures are taken. I just had one where it was a relatively new rug, but it was in a kitchen, and while the people were on vacation, there was a power loss, and the refrigerator quit, stopped
hmm
working, and all the food went bad, and ran out past the seals on the refrigerator door, and it flooded the fringe. For some reason, it just hit the fringe of this rug.
hmm
But you know, all of our safe, thorough cleaning methods got the rug looking perfect, except for this deep, dark stain
hmm
on the fringe. And, we tested everything, and including chlorine bleach, very dilute, which we
Hmm.
then immediately neutralized when we realized that it wasn't responding. Unfortunately, most of the guys use chlorine bleach and never will neutralize it. So it
No.
keeps attacking and destroying that fringe. But what ended up getting this fringe looking perfectly brand new again was a rust remover.
Really interesting.
And yeah, we were kind of surprised, but you know, that's what good cleaners do
Hmm.
is they test all the probable things, and when none of those things do the work, do the job, then you move on to the improbable stuff. But the main rule is that we never want to do any harm
Hmm.
just to get a stain out.
Right.
We'd rather leave a stain in and not injure that fiber or that fabric. But in this case, it was just a simple rust remover, made it look beautifully white again, and then we just flushed the rust remover out with pure water. And I can't wait to deliver that one. That one's
Yeah.
set, going home
I must
tomorrow or
get
the
that one.
next day, and yep, it's I'm going to be proud to hand that one back to them because, you know, the last thing they said was, if you can't get that clean, we understand. It
Hmm.
was just an extreme situation, but if you can just get that rug healthy again, so that it won't make us sick
Yeah.
or smell terrible, that'll be good enough. So I really like exceeding
Oh
expectations
yeah.
and doing it in a safe way. So it's
Yeah.
it's sometimes like we have to be almost like detectives and put all the clues together and um, you know try and figure out what happened or how a stain got there, and then when the obvious stuff doesn't work, keep on going, but just go systematically and carefully, and you know, eventually it's like turning a key in a lock, and it's very rewarding to me to that aspect of stain removal is finding that perfect product that does the job, and it makes your customers really happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Jackie just started. My daughter just started in our company, and she's been here a year. This next week it will be a year. And so when she first started up, she goes, I had no, she started up and we cleaned rugs, and she saw we did it, and she goes, my goodness, Dad, this is like being a forensic scientist.
Yeah.
You have to use black lights and you have to use different things, testers, to find out what's in it. And then you have to match up the chemistry to get it out. And it just blew her away. She goes, I had no idea. I thought you
Yep.
just cleaned it. You threw some product down there and you wiped it up or vacuumed it or something, and it went away magically. And I was like, nope, no, not at all.
That would be nice, though.
Yeah, it would. Yeah,
Yeah, I was so proud for you when I saw
yeah,
that Jackie was joining the family business. That's got to be one of the most rewarding things
it
ever.
is. It is, and
Um,
she's going to be taking over the rug part of our business. We do lots of different things, so
wow.
she's already shown great interest and has progressed pretty well for her first year in the rug cleaning business. So
Yeah, she's smart. She's
she
got a
is
good mind for that kind of detail. So
indeed.
I can see her really excelling in that.
Yeah, she's excited about it. So, well,
Cool.
Nathan, here it is, an hour and 40 minutes. I told you it would be about 45 minutes, and it's an hour and 40. I knew it was going to go over, but we should probably wrap this up. Speaking of rugs, I got a bunch of deliveries in the morning, and it's already 1 in the morning here. So,
Wow, is it?
yeah, it
Time
is. Yeah.
flies.
I'm just going to run through my notes. I think we covered pretty much everything, anyways. Any final comments, thoughts?
Well, just um, in general, we touched on it earlier. When you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I hope Jackie feels that way about the rug business. And if I can ever help her out in any way or be there for her, you can give her my number, and I'll be right there with any advice she ever needs.
Well,
So
thanks. That's awesome. Yeah, I
yeah,
appreciate that.
I'm happy
On a
for you.
selfish level, I really appreciate that. But I wanted to give you a chance too to tell people how to get in touch with you to get their rugs cleaned or your advice or whatever.
Well, you can reach me on the internet at cleanorientalrug.com. My email is cleanorientalrug@gmail.com. And, our phone number at the office, 616-454-2222. And, those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. If it's something more urgent, you can just either email or call the office, and they'll put you right in touch with me. But it's I really enjoy helping, especially newcomers to the business. I get a sense of satisfaction about that because there were so many people that helped me when I was getting started, and I really enjoy giving back, when I can to other cleaners. That's really something that my friend Lynn Tall, who I know you know,
Oh
she
yeah,
and I kind of promised each other when we were studying for the CRS test that if down the road we were ever in a position where we could help other people, that we would do that. And
awesome.
it's something that I enjoy doing. So I encourage people, if they need help, to reach out to me, and I'll do my best to help them through any problems they come across. So most of them are, one way or another. You can pretty much do anything with rugs, whether it's even the most impossible stains or damage can be repaired or rewoven. So, maybe we can talk about that some other time.
Yeah,
But
we'll get on repairs
you
next
know,
time. That's a good one. Good
repairs
topic.
are a whole nother facet of the business that, um, it's fascinating to me that, anything that can be made can be restored again by somebody with the skill to do it. So, it's just it's fun for me to be in a position now where I can give back a little bit, but I'm still always in that learning mode too. And it's a rare day where I don't sit back and say, "Wow, I just learned something new." And that's to me one of the joys of the business is I'm always learning something and adding to what I know. And I think if I didn't do that, it would get boring to me after a
Hmm.
while. So it's
Absolutely.
the continuing chase, always trying to learn more and more about the craft, and helping others do the same is very rewarding.
That thirst for knowledge, and that's one of your. I mean, you've got a lot of redeeming qualities, Nathan, and that's to me that's one of the top ones. It's like here's this guy who knows a lot about rugs already, who just is telling us right now that there's more to learn, and it's like for guys who have just starting up in the industry, they've been to a couple of schools and they think that's it. And they're like, "Oh, I'm done. Cool. Now I got my masters and my master rug cleaner and all this other stuff." And it's like, "No, dude, you're just starting. You got a long ways to go, and we'll never know it all, even when
Yeah,
we think we do." So, but
it's a long road.
thanks so much, Nathan. You're a hell of a guy. Appreciate your time here. I'm gonna get this up on YouTube here over the weekend. So, take care, and we'll talk again.
Sounds good, Scott.
All right,
Thanks a
thanks.
lot. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise, take care.
You too, buddy.